The story begins on an ordinary day in Los Angeles. The streets were busy, people moved fast, and nobody seemed to notice each other. But in the middle of this rushing crowd, one man walked slowly, his steps calm, his face gentle. It was Keanu Reeves. Keanu was dressed simply. He wore a black jacket, plain jeans, and old shoes. He carried no bodyguards, no flashing smile for cameras. He just moved like any other man. Most people around him did not even recognize who he was. But what happened that day showed why so many call him the kindest man in Hollywood. As Keanu crossed a crowded street, he saw a woman struggling with her grocery bags. One bag ripped open, and oranges rolled out onto the road. Cars honked loudly. People stared for a second, then walked away. The woman bent down, embarrassed and scared, trying to gather her things. Keanu stepped forward. Without hesitation, he bent down till he helped her pick up the oranges, one by one, ignoring the honking cars and the impatient crowd. When the woman looked up and saw who was helping her, she froze, her eyes filled with surprise. Then, with tears, she whispered, "You are Keanu Reeves?" Keanu gave a small smile. "Yes, but right now, I'm just someone helping you." The crowd stopped moving. Phones came out, pictures started clicking, but Keanu did not care. He stayed focused on the woman. When all the groceries were picked up, he carried the heavy bag himself and walked her to the sidewalk. The woman said softly, "Nobody stopped but you did." "What?" Keanu answered with a calm voice, because kindness should never be delayed. That moment touched everyone who saw it. Many people recorded the video, and within hours, it spread online. Millions of viewers saw Keanu helping the woman with her groceries, but more than the act itself, it was his humility, his silence, and his simple words that melted hearts across the world. Yet this was only the beginning of what would become a chain of stories. Small gestures from Keanu that reveal the truth. Greatness is not only in fame or success, but in how one treats people, who can give nothing in return. Later that same evening, Keanu walked into a small coffee shop. He ordered a black coffee and waited in line like everyone else. There was a young man behind the counter, nervous and shaking. It was his first day at work. He fumbled with the machine, spilled milk, and muttered apologies. Customers grew restless. Some whispered complaints. Keanu noticed. When his turn came, he leaned closer and said gently, "Don't worry, everyone makes mistakes the first time. You're doing fine." The young man looked up, shocked. He realized he was speaking to a Hollywood star. But what mattered more was the kindness in those words. Keanu's smile gave him courage. Later, the young man wrote online, "Today, I wanted to quit because I thought I was failing, but Keanu Reeves told me I was doing fine. I will never forget it." Again, the world listened. People shared the story, amazed at how a few simple words could change someone's spirit. As days passed, more such moments came out. A photo of Keanu giving up his seat on the subway for a tired woman. A story about him waiting in the rain with strangers at a bus stop when his car broke down. Another tale of him quietly paying for a stranger's meal at a diner without telling anyone. The internet called him the nicest man alive. But Keanu never responded to these titles. He lived the same way he always had, quietly, humbly, without expecting anything in return. But behind this calm man was a life filled with deep pain and hidden struggles. Many did not know about his tragic past, the losses he suffered, and the loneliness he carried silently. And it was in those struggles that the seed of his kindness was planted. What the world saw as small gestures were, in truth, lessons from his own pain. Each time he showed respect, each time he lifted someone else, he was reminding himself of what truly mattered. And so, the story of Keanu's kindness is not just about helping others. It is about survival, about choosing love over bitterness, about refusing to let pain harden the heart. This was the beginning of a journey that would take us deeper into the life of Keanu Reeves, revealing the hidden reasons behind his humility, the silent battles he fought, and the quiet victories that turned him into a symbol of kindness across the world. And as the world would soon discover, sometimes the smallest gestures leave the biggest marks. The world had seen the simple acts of kindness, but very few understood the deep roots behind Keanu Reeves' humility. To know why he moved with such gentleness, one must walk back into his past, into the moments that shaped him, into the pain that taught him to value kindness more than fame. Keanu was born in Lebanon, but his childhood was not stable. His father left when he was very young, and his mother had to raise him with limited support. They moved from city to city, never staying in one place for long. As a child, Keanu often felt like a stranger everywhere he went. He carried books in his hands, but questions in his heart. He struggled with school. Reading was hard for him because of dyslexia, and teachers thought he was lazy. Classmates mocked him. Many children laughed when he stumbled over words or forgot lines in class. But Keanu never shouted back. He stayed silent, took the pain inside, and learned one lesson that would stay forever. Respect matters more when it is missing. When he grew older, he found love for acting. But even then, nothing came easy. He worked in small theaters, riding broken bicycles to auditions, sometimes skipping meals because money was short. Yet he carried a quiet smile. Behind that smile, there was a promise he made to himself. If he ever became successful, He would never treat anyone as less important. Then came the first big break. He was cast in small roles, and slowly, his name began to rise. But just as the light of fame touched him, darkness struck. His best friend, River Phoenix, a talented young actor, died suddenly at a very young age. The news broke Keanu's heart. He remembered nights when they laughed together, spoke about dreams, and promised to always stand by each other. Losing River felt like losing a brother. After that, life gave him another cruel wound. Keanu fell in love with Jennifer Syme, a woman who brought peace to his restless soul. They dreamed of a family, but in 1999, tragedy struck again. Their baby girl was stillborn. The joy they had imagined turned into unbearable grief. Less than 2 years later, Jennifer herself died in a car accident. Most people would have turned bitter, angry, or lost in despair. But Keanu chose another path. He carried his pain silently, without using it as a weapon against the world. Instead, he used his pain as a reminder of how fragile life is, and how every small act of kindness could heal someone, even if only for a moment. This is why Keanu never surrounded himself with luxury. He could afford mansions, but he lived in a simple apartment. He could travel in private jets, but he took the subway. He could demand respect with fame, but he earned it through humility. There is a story from the set of The Matrix. While other stars enjoyed expensive trailers, Keanu spent much of his free time with the stunt team and crew. When he learned they were underpaid compared to the risks they took, he quietly gave millions of his own salary to support them. He never announced it, never told the media, but the stuntmen spoke of him with tears in their eyes, calling him a brother, not just a star. Once, during the filming, a crew member's family faced medical problems. Keanu found out quietly and wrote a check to help, without leaving his name. The crew member only discovered it later. When asked why, Keanu simply said, "Because we are family on this set." Again and again, stories like this appeared, each story different, yet connected by one thread: kindness. People realized these were not random acts. They were reflections of a man who had known loneliness, loss, and heartbreak, and who had decided that instead of spreading pain, he would spread kindness. But Keanu's humility was often misunderstood by Hollywood. Some critics said he lacked ambition, that he was too quiet, too simple for a world that thrives on noise and attention. But Keanu never defended himself. He believed silence was stronger than arguments, and then came a moment that shocked many. At a film premiere, reporters rushed to the stars, shoving microphones in their faces. One reporter ignored Keanu, walking past him to interview another actor. Fans expected him to feel insulted, but Keanu only smiled gently and stepped aside. Later, he even congratulated the other actor, clapping for him with sincerity. A fan standing nearby whispered, "How can he stay so calm after being ignored like that?" Another answered softly, "Because his heart is bigger than his ego." This single moment went viral, not because Keanu did anything dramatic, but because he did the opposite. He showed grace when most would show anger. Millions of viewers online wrote comments like, "I wish I could be like him when I'm disrespected." His small gestures reminded people of something the world often forgets. You cannot control how others treat you, but you can control how you respond. Through his silence, his kindness, and his humility, Keanu became more than an actor. He became a mirror, showing people their own choices. And yet, there was more to come. Keanu's story was not only about quiet acts in everyday life. It was also about moments where his humility surprised the entire world in ways no one expected. Moments that made strangers cry, fans cheer, and critics change their opinions. And as his journey continued, those moments would reveal that sometimes, the greatest strength lies in the gentlest heart. The world already knew Keanu Reeves as a humble man, but part of what made his kindness unforgettable were the unexpected public moments where he chose respect over pride, humility over arrogance. These moments did not take place in the silence of private rooms, but in front of strangers, where the smallest choice could change the atmosphere for everyone watching. One such moment happened on a rainy evening in New York City. A packed subway train rattled through the tunnels, crowded with tired passengers, businessmen with briefcases, students carrying heavy backpacks, mothers holding children, all pressed together, waiting for the journey to end. In the corner, sitting quietly with his hands folded, was Keanu. At first, no one recognized him. His hair was damp, his jacket plain, his face calm. He looked like just another passenger. But then an older woman entered the train, struggling to balance herself as the carriage swayed. Many saw her but chose to stay seated. Keanu stood up immediately, offering her his seat with a small smile. The woman sat down, unaware of who he was, and whispered, "Thank you, young man." A student nearby gasped, recognizing him. He pulled out his phone and recorded the scene. When the video went online, millions saw it. Comments filled the internet. "He has all the money in the world, but he rides the subway and treats people with respect." What touched people most was not that he gave up his seat, it was that he did it without needing recognition. His gesture was natural, not performed. It showed who he truly was when nobody was watching. But another incident soon revealed an even deeper side of his nature. During the filming of one of his movies, a fan approached him outside the set. The fan was nervous. carrying an old notebook filled with pictures of Keanu cut out from magazines. His hands shook as he asked for an autograph. Keanu signed each page patiently, one by one, without rushing. Then, instead of walking away, he asked the fan questions about his life. The fan later wrote online, "I thought he would sign and leave, but he wanted to know about me. He listened like my story mattered. I will never forget that." This small moment went viral too, because in a world where celebrities often rush past fans, Keanu stopped, listened, and respected someone who felt invisible. Another powerful story came from an airport. Flights were delayed due to bad weather, and hundreds of passengers sat frustrated in the waiting area. Many were angry, demanding answers from staff. Keanu was among them. Instead of hiding in a private lounge, he stayed with everyone. When people grew restless, Keanu stood up and began reading facts about the city they were stranded in, making jokes to ease the tension. He even arranged for a small bus to help a group of passengers travel to a nearby location. Someone recorded the moment, and once again, the world saw his calm presence turn frustration into laughter. It was not the grand act of a superstar, but the gentle leadership of someone who understood human struggles. But the most surprising moment came when a reporter asked him a direct question about fame. "Keanu, with all your success, what keeps you so grounded?" Keanu paused, looked at the crowd, and said softly, "Because tomorrow is never promised. We don't own time, we only share it. So if I can make someone's day a little lighter, why wouldn't I?" His words spread like wildfire. People wrote, "He speaks the truth we forget every day." And yet, for all his kindness, Keanu faced challenges too. Hollywood is a place where humility is often mistaken for weakness. Some mocked his simplicity, saying he lacked the sparkle of other stars. Others claimed he was boring because he avoided scandals and controversies. But the truth was different. What many called boring was actually peace. What some saw as weakness was strength. And Keanu showed that strength not through loud actions, but through quiet consistency. Even on sets, actors spoke about how he treated everyone equally. One crew member once said, "Keanu would spend hours talking to the lighting team, the sound guys, the cleaners. He treated us like family. Most stars don't even look at us." This is why, when his movies came out, the crew worked harder than ever, not just for money, but out of respect for him. He inspired loyalty through kindness. Still, one story above all captured his essence. A young boy battling cancer had only one wish: to meet Keanu Reeves. When Keanu found out, he didn't send a signed poster or a quick video message. He traveled quietly to the boy's home, spent hours with him, played games, and spoke about life. The boy's mother said, "For those hours, my son forgot his pain. He smiled more than he had in months." This moment did not make the headlines immediately. Keanu never told the media, but when the family shared their story later, people around the world cried. They realized that his kindness was not an act for cameras, but a way of life. And as these moments added up, the image of Keanu Reeves became something rare: a star whose light was not in the spotlight, but in the way he lit up others' lives. But the journey was not finished. There were still moments ahead, moments where Keanu's humility would be tested in ways that surprised even him, moments that showed that kindness is not just about small gestures, it is about standing strong when pride, anger, or revenge seem easier. The question remained, could kindness still win when the world tried to test it the hardest? As the world admired Keanu Reeves for his humility, there came moments when his kindness was not just tested in ordinary situations, but in painful, humiliating ones. These were the times when anger would have been natural, when silence could have been mistaken for weakness. But it was in these moments that Keanu showed the rare strength of choosing kindness over pride. One evening, at a film award ceremony, Keanu walked down the red carpet wearing his simple black suit. While other stars were surrounded by flashing cameras and loud cheers, Keanu walked quietly, smiling softly at fans who waved at him from behind the barriers. A reporter, perhaps seeking drama, asked loudly, "Keanu, you're not as successful as some of the other actors here tonight. Do you ever feel like you don't belong in this league?" The question cut through the noise, and many people turned to look. Some laughed softly, expecting Keanu to be embarrassed. Others waited for a sharp reply. But Keanu did not show anger. Instead, he paused, looked at the reporter gently, and said, "I believe we all belong where we are kind." His answer silenced the crowd. Fans began clapping, not because of his fame, but because of his grace. The reporter lowered the microphone, realizing the cruelty of the question. That clip went viral, teaching millions that respect is not shown through arrogance, but through patience. Another time, during a public talk show, the host tried to make a joke at Keanu's expense. "You seem to plain, Keanu. Don't you think Hollywood stars should live larger than life? Where's your glamour?" The audience laughed at the joke, but Keanu only smiled and replied calmly, "I think the best glamour is kindness. It never goes out of style." The laughter stopped, and instead, the audience gave him a round of applause. Yet there were moments even more personal, where the sting of humiliation could have broken anyone's spirit. One story came from a luxury restaurant. Keanu walked in, dressed simply, and sat quietly at a corner table. Some guests, dressed in designer suits, noticed him. Instead of greeting him with respect, they whispered and laughed, mocking his plain clothes. A waiter, nervous, approached Keanu and asked if he wanted to move to a quieter area. Keanu shook his head, smiled, and said, "No, I'm fine here. Everyone deserves their space to laugh." He ate his meal peacefully, left a generous tip for the waiter, and walked out without bitterness. The same guests who mocked him later realized their mistake when other diners pointed out that was Keanu Reeves. The man you laughed at is one of the most respected actors in the world. Shame replaced their laughter. It was in such quiet moments that Keanu's strength became clear. His kindness was not weakness. It was power that disarmed cruelty without raising a single weapon. Another unforgettable moment came when a fan insulted him online. The fan wrote cruel words about his appearance, saying he looked tired and old. Unlike other stars who stayed polished, most celebrities would ignore such comments or respond with anger. But Keanu replied with a simple line, "Aging is a gift, not a curse." Those words struck the internet like lightning. People flooded the comments section, defending him, praising his wisdom. The fan later deleted the insult and apologized. Behind all these moments was one truth: Keanu had faced enough loss in life to understand that cruelty often comes from people's own pain. Instead of answering pain with more pain, he chose to give kindness as a response. But his humility reached its highest point during an ordinary day on the street. Keanu was walking when a man, frustrated and angry, bumped into him roughly. The man shouted, "Watch where you're going." Not realizing who he had pushed, Keanu could have reacted. He could have exposed his identity, demanded respect. Instead, he nodded, stepped aside, and said softly, "I hope your day gets better." The man froze. He looked at Keanu again, realizing who he was. Shame filled his face. He apologized, but Keanu just gave a small smile and walked on. Witnesses shared the story online, and millions read it. People wrote, "He turns insults into lessons." He shows that dignity is not about fighting back, but about rising above. By now, Keanu's life was not just about movies or fame. His name had become a symbol, a reminder that small gestures, offering a seat, giving a calm reply, showing respect, could change the atmosphere around us. But Keanu's journey was not finished yet. There were still more stories. More moments where his actions would bring unexpected light into the darkest of places. Moments that would prove kindness was not only for strangers but also for those who carried the heaviest burdens. Keanu's humility had already touched millions. But some of the most powerful moments came when his kindness reached those who carried the heaviest pain. These were not grand gestures meant for headlines, but quiet moments that healed broken hearts and gave hope to people who thought they had none left. One story came from a small bookstore in Los Angeles. Keanu walked in quietly one afternoon, wearing a cap pulled low and a simple jacket. He wandered through the aisles, picking up books, lost in thought. Nearby, a young woman sat at a corner table, tears rolling down her face. She held a notebook filled with scribbles and drawings, but her hands trembled as she tried to write. Keanu noticed her. He hesitated for a moment, then walked gently toward her table. He didn't ask what was wrong. Instead, he picked up a pen. Lying nearby, drew a small smiley face on the corner of her notebook, and said softly, "Sometimes even a small smile helps us start again." The young woman froze. When she looked up, she realized who it was. Her tears turned into quiet laughter. Later, she shared the story online, writing, "I thought I was invisible in my sadness, but Keanu reminded me that even strangers care." Another unforgettable moment happened on the set of one of his movies. A worker in the crew had recently lost his wife. Grief weighed heavily on him, and though he tried to continue his job, his spirit was broken. Most people didn't notice, too busy with their own tasks, but Keanu did. One day, during a break, Keanu sat beside him and said gently, "I know what it feels like to lose someone you love. It doesn't get easier, but it makes you appreciate every smile you still see." Those words were not just sympathy, they came from Keanu's own pain, from his own losses. The crew member later said, "He didn't just comfort me, he reminded me I wasn't alone." There was also a story of a boy in a wheelchair who dreamed of meeting Keanu. When the chance came during a fan event, security tried to rush things along because the line was long, but Keanu stopped them. He knelt down beside the boy, spoke with him for several minutes, asked about his hobbies, his favorite movies, and even signed his wheelchair with a bright smile. The boy's parents cried as they watched. They later said, "He gave our son more than just an autograph, he gave him dignity." Again and again, Keanu showed that his greatest strength was not in his fame, but in how he made people feel seen. Perhaps one of the most moving stories came from an ordinary bus ride. Keanu was sitting near the back, reading a book, when a homeless man boarded. Many passengers looked away. Some covered their noses, others shifted uncomfortably. But Keanu closed his book, smiled, and offered the man half of the sandwich he had with him. The homeless man hesitated, then accepted. Keanu spoke with him casually, not as a stranger, but as a friend. He asked about his life, listened without judgment, and laughed at his jokes. Passengers who witnessed it later said the atmosphere in the bus changed. The man, who was invisible to everyone else, suddenly shone with dignity because someone as famous as Keanu treated him as equal. These were the gestures that made millions admire him, not because they were loud, but because they were quiet, human, and real. And yet, even with all his kindness, Keanu never wanted to be called a hero. In an interview, when someone asked him why people loved him so much, he answered, softly, I don't know if they love me. Maybe they love the kindness, because kindness belongs to everyone. Those words spread across the world like wildfire. People shared them, printed them, quoted them. Teachers used them in schools, parents repeated them to children, and strangers reminded each other of them in daily life. But life is not without shadows. And even for a man like Keanu, there were times when his kindness was pushed to the limit. Moments where pain, betrayal, and anger tested him once again, and it was in those final tests that the world would see whether kindness could truly survive against life's hardest blows. Asterisk, as Keanu's life continued to inspire people, there came a time when his kindness faced its greatest test. The world admired him, but life does not spare even the gentlest souls. It was in these challenges that his true spirit shone brighter than ever. One evening, during a film shoot overseas, Keanu was walking back to his hotel when a group of fans gathered around him. Most were excited, asking for photos. But one man in the crowd was different. Perhaps out of jealousy or anger, he shouted harsh words, mocking Keanu's appearance and calling him washed up. The crowd grew silent, waiting to see how Keanu would respond. Instead of reacting with anger, Keanu turned to the man, looked him in the eyes, and said softly, I hope you find peace, brother. Then he gave the man a handshake before leaving. The crowd erupted in applause. The man who insulted him stood frozen, tears slowly filling his eyes. Later, he admitted to others, I was hurting inside, and I tried to throw that pain at him, but he gave me respect instead. That was the lesson. Keanu showed that kindness was not only about helping those who are weak or sad, it was also about forgiving those who tried to hurt you. Another test came in his career. After years of success, Keanu was offered a massive role in a blockbuster film. But when he learned that if he accepted, several smaller actors and crew members would lose their jobs due to budget cuts, he stepped back. Instead of thinking about money or fame, he thought about people. He told the studio, keep them. I will take less. The decision shocked Hollywood. Stars were rarely known to give up such offers. But Keanu reminded the world that success is hollow if it costs others their livelihood. His humility reached yet another peak when he was asked, in an interview, about all the praise he received for being the nicest man alive. He smiled, shook his head and said, I'm just a man. I make mistakes, but I try to remember what pain feels like, and I try not to give that pain to others. It was not a perfect answer, but it was real, and it made people love him even more. Then came a final story, one that brought everything together. During a charity event, a child asked him, why are you always so kind? Keanu knelt down, looked into the child's eyes, and said, because the world gave me reasons to be bitter. But being kind makes the world a little softer for me, and for others. The audience went silent. Some cried, others clapped. Everyone understood that his kindness was not just an act, not just politeness, it was survival. It was a choice he made every day to heal instead of harm. And so, his small gestures, offering a seat, giving a smile, sharing a sandwich, listening to strangers, forgiving insults, added up to something greater than any award or title. They became stories that traveled across the world. Stories that inspired millions to believe that kindness is not weakness, but strength. Keanu Reeves. Life shows us that true greatness is not in how high you rise, but in how gently you lift others along the way.